IDAs get the scrutiny. They're in the paper more often. We'll get the local corporate. While we're waiting, I will recognize that our secretary just got back from her honeymoon/wedding and has a new last name.
Yes.
So you notice her name is different on her name tag there. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Your wedding.
Is it Wisniewski? Wisniewski. Okay.
Another email
For now, though, I have tried it. Kate Dawson still does go to that email. I tried it.
Hey, Brian,
Yep.
it's doing the same thing that it did last month, so I have to check the YouTube page.
What's that?
Is there a new name Dawson or Wisniewski? I used to be a Dawson.
Excellent.
Wisniewski.
We're still doing this, but so
It
Katie,
says it.
Yep.
It should be because it says to stop.
Katie Bronson is at, there's a joint at NYSDC is like the, I'll call it the lobbying not-for-profit for county IDAs at the state level, based in Albany. They hold conferences, including the one in Cooperstown where they go to, and then staff go to other ones. They do a joint conference with NIATEP. Don't ask me, it's a long acronym. It has to do with workforce development. I don't know what they all speak for. New York Association of Training Professionals, something like that. Joint conference in Rochester. Katie and the husband, wife, teacher team, the Zex, as we say here, and Art Roberts from SCORE all made a presentation on our Pixar pitch competition yesterday afternoon. Katie did a wonderful job. I thought it was very well received. Got a lot of good kudos. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up. It's a nice, thorough review of that, and happy to be getting the word out about it. I'm very excited for this year. We'll get into updates. We'll get to EDC agenda stuff. We're good to go.
Good to go.
Good morning, Kim.
Okay. All right, I'd like to call a meeting of the Green County Industrial Development Agency of October 22nd to order. We get a motion to approve the September 24th.
So moved.
Approve. Resolution adopting proposed parish budget comprising submission.
There was a recommendation from the finance committee to.
Favor?
Aye.
Who spelled to the, we did that one. Yeah, right.
Alright.
First portion on there is your bank balances. As you'll notice, I did make a side note that the two CDs matured. They were transitioned, the ones were transitioned over to L&B. So you will see those on there. We just kind of kept them steady just to show the differences. Next page is budget versus actuals. You can see, so the income increased a little bit from 39 to 45% of budgeted net income. And then for expenses, we scroll down. We are at 33%, which is a little bit up from 29. And so far we are at 94% of the budgeted net income. So we're looking really good compared to expected. That's all.
So, I know I've been promising this for a while. I did get around. You're welcome. I'm happy to amend this format, if you will, on my report. It is condensed, by the way, across the agency, so I tried to separate it out, but it's all together. Hyperlinks to news articles. There's lots of things developing. A couple bills pending. I don't know if they're advancing at the state level relative to the makeup of IDA boards and reporting, which is usual. IDAs are pretty scrutinized, in particular during budget season. I do have a topic I would like to bring up with you guys relative to pilot billing and solar projects. But I will pause and see if there are questions on any of the updates I provided in that report. Hearing or seeing none. So pilot billing, solar project development, I don't wanna be kind of sitting here, but I'm gonna start at the beginning and kind of walk through this. So New York State Real Property Tax Law 487 exempts solar projects from taxes, property taxes, I should say. Communities can opt in or opt out. Some in the county have opted out, including the county. Some school districts, not all of them. Some towns, not all of them. If you've opted out, you're starting from a position of full property taxes. Generally speaking, whether you've opted in or opted out, we have been approaching solar projects from the position of, okay, we get it, they're not taxable, but we're gonna charge you something, a payment in lieu of taxes or a payment in lieu of nothing. And that's how our projects have been operating, right? We enter a pilot agreement, we charge a certain amount, we pro rata distribute it to tax jurisdictions. I think it's been working well. We have 12 executed pilot agreements with solar projects across the county. It's been a very cooperative approach, I think, between taxing jurisdictions, because we're effectively taking the care of not only working through the process of executing the pilot, but ongoing 15-year management, 15 years is the pilot term for solar projects. Management of that contract, collection of payments, etc. In the 2022-23 budget cycle, the state adopted a law that put into effect a new assessment tool to value solar projects. General rule of thumb for a subset of solar projects has been about $1 million a megawatt. So 5 megawatt, typical system size, $5 million on the books, if you will, as far as the value goes. Taxable or not, that's kind of been the basis. The new assessment tool adopted by the state and put in the law is requiring assessors to use this new tool to value solar projects. The law says, so I'm gonna take a step, circle back around a little bit. The law that exempts them from taxes says, you can require a pilot, but you can't charge them more than you normally would charge them in taxes, right? So if you take that $5 million in value, our pilot payments have been substantially less than that full value. The new calculator, which is the full tax is way down to the point to where it's dancing the line on what our typical pilot payment would be and what the assessor and the math does associated with what they would pay in full taxes. I'll say this for the record. I think it's very unfair, and I think it's argumentable. You could argue it's not the state's role to assess property, but local assessors do. And we've had quite a few conversations with the local assessors in the county, and a lot of them are struggling with this, if anything. For about a year and a half, we saw a lull in projects, solar project development. I think it had to do with questions relative to the federal tax credit, some ambiguity relative to the state's incentives through NYSERDA for solar projects. But we have seen an uptick recently in potential projects at the IDA. We see these early because we staff the county planning department here as well, and we see site plan reviews and other stuff going to that side of our office. So we're like, okay, these are coming eventually to the IDA side of things, and typically project developers will wait till they get through local permitting, site plan reviews. They'll require special permits for solar projects. So they get through all that stuff, and then they come to the IDA for the pilot stuff. One project so far by a developer called Norwood Solar, developing a project in the town of Arcadia, approached that school district independent of the IDA. We've all been on the same page. The business manager of the school district retired, somebody stepped in, was unfamiliar with our process, and just sent it to their attorneys, and their attorneys went ahead and executed a pilot without us. Without us means without the county, without the town. Created, frankly, a ton of confusion on what the path is moving forward, which effectively might be no pilot, you're fully taxable. The county and the town issue their tax bills based on assessed value and off you go. It is limiting to the extent that we have included a pretty substantial benefit to the towns in our process. 25,000 per megawatt. A 500 megawatt project to the town of Arcadia would result in $125,000 check to the town on top of their pro rata portion of their annual pilot. Another solar developer who is attempting to take a similar path right now. The end all be all of all of this is, prior to this change in the assessment tool, take full taxability, discount it on a percentage based on what the pilot revenue is providing. It's about, let's call it in somewhere between the 85 and the 90% discount on full taxes based on a 5 million assessed value for a 5 megawatt. Now, it's even less. Feels frankly a little unfair to taxing jurisdictions. This assessment calculator is driving developers to say, we can't go to IDAs because they want to charge us more than what is allowed under the law. A lot of moving parts with this, I've been thinking about it a lot. I mentioned there's a host community benefit payment, right, to the town and the pilot within our agreements and the fee structures. The school district, you executed the pilot with this solar project, included what they called in a community education benefit. Think of it like a host community benefit pay, so it's not a pilot payment, it's not which is like the taxes. They lump sum it at the beginning, and they're getting a small little annual payment from like the school district's pilot. I think it would be well, so all that being said. One, I think the IDA taking the lead on behalf of taxing jurisdictions is a service to our communities. School districts, towns, counties, not in the business of managing pilot agreements generally. A turning time associated with the work that we do with the IDA is charged back to the project. I'm sure the school district's paying their attorneys whatever it costs them to execute this agreement. It's not in the business of doing this. I think it's a service to our communities and free at the end of the day. The collective approach between taxing jurisdictions to getting through this business, if you will, to me makes a ton of sense. But I'm thinking about approaching this, given all these moving parts and changes in the law and the application of this new assessment tool is, I would like to maintain the level of compensation that our taxing jurisdictions have been getting, as opposed to stepping back and then getting even less in the minutia of each individual taxing jurisdiction, potentially creating their own pilot payment and all this other stuff. I'm sure project developers would push back on this, and they already are effectively working around the IDA and approaching taxing jurisdictions directly. I have also been planning on charging more for the use of farmland. This has been a topic that's come up with the county planning board, local boards. It was a big chapter in our county farmland protection plan. There's absolutely an interest at the local level. So you guys probably know this, involved in conversations. The balance between accommodating solar projects and protection of rural character or protection of farmland. There's a lot of nuances buried within this farmland stuff, reports that go to state ag and markets and review of solar projects. So we have some really refined numbers on what is the soil classification you're using for solar project. Is it 1 through 10? 1's the best, 10's the worst, still not bad, but it's not great soil to grow. Wayne County, you throw a stone, you're gonna hit 1 through 4. All great, lots of great growing soil. Charging solar projects for the use of farmland, we've talked about this, right? Everybody's aware of this general plan approach. If we don't have a pilot, we don't have a mechanism to charge this expense and create the balance. The plan would be to collect funds and purchase development rights of farmland somewhere else in the county. So, what am I asking? Generally speaking, are you guys, if you ask questions, I would like to approach negotiation or discussions with taxing jurisdictions on. One, continue to refer them to us. I got an email yesterday from a lawyer who works for a school district We started out hearing from solar developers that they said, we can't go to the IDA. Say, of course you can. Yes, I'm aware that there are caps on what we can charge for pilot payments relative to what the full taxation would be. I can charge in other ways. Post-community benefit payment, education benefit, call it whatever you want. Not a pilot payment, and it'll be more expensive for a solar project developer. But in my mind, absolutely fair, considering the discount they're getting and all the other stuff associated with solar project development. You guys okay with that? I want to press to maintain the level of compensation for taxing jurisdictions. I think it's appropriate for the IDA to play a role. Yeah.
I think the consistency is a good thing. I don't know that the school's doing this all individually is a great method. I think the consistency of handling it here is definitely a good thing. I do have a question. It's like the solar project, the one that approaches school directly.
Mhm.
Would that mean it's still fair game essentially for them to get assessed charges by the town, by the county, because their agreement is strictly with the school?
So
So the
Is it-
solar project that approached the school directly.
Yep.
They came up with their agreement, here's what they're on board with.
Mhm.
Doesn't the town and the county still have the ability to collect payments or to negotiate something, because they didn't make an agreement with the solar developer, or how, like, what does that look like?
the short answer is yes. So each individual, the way the law is written where it's exempt to begin with, basically, it says they all have the right to require a pilot. At the end of the day, I don't know, you guys manage pilot agreements at the town
Two.
that you manage?
No.
they're ID.
Right, well, that's right. They're IDA pilots that we manage. The town's not in the business of managing pilots. I don't think, I mean, other than Gannett, the county doesn't manage any other pilot agreements. School districts are doing school district stuff. For the most part, they're not doing it. We're in the business of managing pilot, this is what the IDA does. Not only that, negotiating, executing, all that other stuff, ongoing. We're doing billing, by the way, which not every IDA does, frankly, very few of them do, but I think it's absolutely effective and a service to everybody if we're doing that and managing that. We do a great job reporting to them on anticipated income and all this other stuff relative to development budgets, getting all those questions down. But this is creating a potentially adversarial, somewhat adversarial conversation between the IDA and solar project developers. And
But not the school districts. Like what you're proposing would help the school districts. Or what if the school district wants to do something different than what we want to do?
They could.
That's the thing, so what leg do we have to stand on?
They can, but
We
I,
can edict that, right, is that what you're saying, we edict that they go through us?
no, we don't,
But if we don't, so on the other side of it, if we don't put a good proposal on the table, what's to say they're not gonna go the other way anyway? I mean,
well, good for who? Right, good for the solar developer? I mean, they're gonna advocate for what's best for them.
well, correct, but I mean, it's just like when I run my business, I'm gonna go with the best, right, the best opportunity for me from a
Sure.
financial perspective.
Yeah.
So where does that rubber hit the road, with what we're gonna propose? Or what the solar developer is gonna propose to the school district?
I
I'm just-
suppose it depends, I mean, what's best for the solar developer from a business perspective relative?
Right,
What's best for the school district, what's best for the county, what's best for the town, all have. I guess the bigger point is, they don't have to be competing interests, right? What's best for the school district, what's best for the town, we can meet a level of compensation, whatever the school district wants, we can include within our structure here. We're all limited by the cap to begin with.
Right.
The bigger point, I think, is that we're doing it collectively. And that we're not moving forward, I don't, is it a huge substantial burden? Maybe not, but it's still a burden on the school district to manage that contract, charge those fees, it's off the regular rules. We can do it all. Solar developers are telling that one school district's probably out of these packing jurisdictions, we can't do IDA stuff, but they wanna charge us more. Well, that's not true.
Right, can you give us, in this example with Arcadia, can you give us what their deal with them was and what it would have been had we managed it?
I don't have a copy of their pilot yet, I've been trying to track it down.
that would be a
It's
good,
not
kind of bring
posted
it
yet.
to life and see what the.
Another suggestion too is,
we have the largest solar developer in the Northeast. I don't know if they're in Ontario or so it's.
Great Spark,
Yes, could we maybe invite Kevin?
they're one of the solar developers attempting to work around us.
That's what I know that, so maybe could we have him come to the meeting and talk to us about what's going on? Maybe? Cause I think that's the way to, take the bull by the horns,
You could,
invite
and-
Kevin in here.
And then you
And
can
see-
always use that as an example to others, it's like, well, we try to invite them in and cooperate with them and
Well, look, I mean, we meet once a month. What I'm asking is, I'm trying to paint the picture. I'll be with Kevin, we'll walk through this and we'll talk about it and I'm sensing hesitation.
Oh, no,
No,
it's a great
I just
idea.
think we wanna know more.
Yeah, we
about
just wanna know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's.
Me too.
Just to keep peeling the onion back,
Yep.
Look,
trying to
and-
figure out what happened.
So do I.
And it doesn't hurt.
And Brian, are you saying today, what Arcadia did, there's nothing that stops them from doing that? Are you looking at putting something in place that doesn't allow them to do what they did?
No, I would rather just
Just-
what we've been doing is not formal, there's no legal approach one way or the other for the IDA to do it, other than the way we've been doing it, which is all the taxing jurisdictions, we
Get
all
together.
agree.
Everybody's kind of on board.
Right.
Yeah, I
Everybody's
mean,
on
local
board.
towns have in their permitting laws, if you want a building permit, or you want, as a part of our approval for your special permit, you're required to go to the county IDA.
Right.
So that's in their laws, not ours.
Yeah. Yep.
But solar developers are pushing back on that local law.
So to me, this goes back to our long time conversation about solar and having a collective county approach to solar.
Yes, and I would like to continue to do that, I think it's a service to everybody. And I agree with the peel back the onion comment, I'm learning too along the way, but I have a sense that, I know that, I'm familiar with the nuances and the details relevant to all of this. What I'm sensing is that in lieu of a solar developer approaching us and saying, hey, there's these changes, how do we work through this? That they're bifurcating the system and they're working around it, and I think it has an opportunity for it to end up being unfair to the county as a whole, given the other stuff that we're doing. There will be no mechanism for that $125,000 payment to the town, once the town sits up and realizes.
So I guess that brings me back into the question I had to start with. For the Arcadia example, they made their negotiations with the school. The town could approach them, or the county could approach them, but in essence, the IDA cannot now approach them, so their
Unclear with
only
me.
payments are with the school.
Unclear with me. So the fact that the school executed a pilot means that from the school's perspective, it is now off the tax rolls. That means
School
that-
only.
It
I don't know exactly.
has
That's
to
where
be,
it's-
the school
It's
can't
not
buy,
tax.
the school can't buy the town account.
just the school.
Yeah, just the school.
I agree. Our attorney has a slightly different interpretation of this, and he's a lawyer and I'm not. So I have to defer to him and extend it. This is not John.
This is more Justin Miller than me.
This is Justin here. We had a meeting last week, I think, with the school district attorney in our New York, who's based in Syracuse, by the way. Not a local attorney, probably not familiar with how the business of this has been operating in the county to begin with. We have several solar projects, at least one, if not two, in the town of Arcadia that we worked through this process and are off and going. This didn't happen that way because their business manager retired and so.
So it seems to me like even though Justin has a different opinion, that it would not be in the solar developer's best interest if the county and town still charges basically without an agreement what they would charge.
True.
Seems like that
eliminates-
should stop the problem.
It
Right, you just need the town and the county.
It eliminates the need for, or the ability for us to collect it on, at least us through our mechanisms, the protection of farmland, right? So I don't have a mechanism, we, through the IDA, will not have a mechanism to take
And
that
I'm
step.
completely on board with this continuing through the IDA, I just wanna understand the deterrent, like what could be a deterrent for these solar developers to undercut the process.
Cause it seems
In
like I
addition-
wouldn't wanna, if I were them, I wouldn't wanna do that if I'm still gonna get charged the full
Right,
tax.
and now I
from
don't
the-
know what the county's coming after, I don't know what the town is, at least here it's collectively, everybody knows what you're.
Do they not understand the developers, the process? Is this something that
Oh,
just
they
kind of?
understand.
They understand, they're trying to get around
Save
it,
money.
they're trying to save money.
Yeah.
And until essentially until the county and the towns catch on and actually approach them with these fees or, you know, what their requirements are gonna be, they
Can we
actually
do
start the
that?
process. We
We do
can't, but the
what?
county, the town.
So that the county and the town, or the town would have to go after them.
That
for
was
those
what I
fees.
was asking, yeah.
Yeah, can,
Well, so again, I mean, you know, all of this can happen outside of the IDA, by the way. We don't have to be doing pilots or solar pilots. The county, the towns, and the schools can all do their own thing.
I think that's crazy.
I do too.
yeah,
And I don't have all the answers. I'm bringing this because it's complicated. Keeping you guys in the loop on where these things are, but getting some general direction, like, I'm gonna keep peeling back the onion. I wanna feel, in a way, empowered to say, we think this is fair. And 5,500 per megawatt, 2% escalator for 15 years. We talked about this last meeting, I think, or the meeting before. I think we should go to 6,000. We've been charging 5,500 per megawatt since we started 8 years ago, or whatever it was. Things are more expensive. These projects are making more money. Kilowatt hours cost more. We're all paying more on utility bills. They're making more money. Taxing jurisdictions should be compensated relatively the same.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, then there's gonna be re-levying of all that burden, right? I mean, so it's a case of if they come in and that could be school taxes for however long.
Yeah, the solar projects revenue is selling kilowatt hours to the grid. Right, so if we're buying kilowatt hours, generally at your house, we're probably, not that long ago, we were paying somewhere between 7.5 and 8 cents a kilowatt hour. Now you're paying 8.5, maybe 9. You're paying more, so the compensation to the utility is higher. The power purchase agreements that solar projects enter and say, I'm gonna sell you kilowatt hours at whatever rate to NYSEG, RG&E, National Grid, kind of pick one. So that business model is generating more money based on consumers paying more for electricity, so there's more cash flow going to them. More income, more revenue to the solar project, and here's a play to try to reduce expenses. Now I'm not paying IDA lawyers, school districts are paying their own lawyers, counties are paying their own lawyers, towns are paying their own lawyers, so I'm avoiding all of that. I'm not paying agency fees, I'm not paying host community benefit fees, and I'm not paying this Woodby County, Wayne County farmland protection fee. Because, you know, I'm just dividing and, you know, hey, school district, I'll make you guys go off and do it. And the school district goes off and does it. And then towns and counties can do that too. But they're just not in the business of it. And fairly well versed in this, we've been doing this for a while. And the plan is to reach out to all the school districts. I have a pretty easy path to the county, and I can get it to towns pretty easily too, because I'm on board of supervisors. And here's what's going on. My recommendation would be to tell them, continue to refer projects to the IDA, which is where we started way back.
Right.
And we established, frankly, I think it's the model that at least half of the counties in New York are using.
That was my other question is, what are other counties doing?
For the most part, they do what we do. Straight line, right? So there was, when this all started, there was this like, oh, it's a percentage of revenue for the solar project, we'll pay a percentage of revenue in their project. Well, that would mean annual review of financials, but independent audits, no, I'm not doing that. I thought fair compensation was $8,000 a megawatt when we started this, I still think it is. New York State said 3,500 and we landed at 5,500. Which I think was a fair negotiation, fine. But we're also, because the school district gets 60% of pilot payments, towns get 10. You know what, the town needs more. So 25,000 a megawatt upfront payment balances the scales between the county and the towns and school district. Without the IDA involved, wear these multiple hats. We don't have a mechanism to creating that revenue income to those taxing jurisdictions. And it feels uncooperative at the end of the day, and I think all of us working, it's been a good model, it works well with other counties don't necessarily do it. Lots of them do. I would say the vast majority are doing it this way. Some counties, for Ontario County, for a while, several years, was like, we don't want to do solar pilot stuff, we'll let the taxing jurisdictions do it. I think they quickly realized. They're all looking at us saying, why are you not doing this? We need help with this, we don't know how to do this. So Ontario County started doing pilot agreements for solar projects.
Can we, I was just gonna ask, can we work a policy with the town and county to make it so that developers can't come in and do that? So it becomes a policy that they have, the school or whatever has to come through us.
That's effectively.
So that when a developer starts doing it, they get their hands slapped.
That's what they're trying to push, that's what they're pushing back on now, and that is that local law that says, so, in order, I don't know, all in my head all the time. 15 towns all require a special permit to do a solar project, right? So it's not just like in the zoning codes, you have to apply for a special permit. As a condition of getting that special permit, you gotta go to the IDA for a permit. That's.
How are they pushing back on it? What's their grounds to just avoid it? I mean, if it's
The
there,
IDA wants to charge us more than they legally can.
just don't like it, doesn't mean you can
Right.
ignore it.
Right,
This is what, I'm gonna have an email, I can read it to you verbatim.
but
This
that's
is
kind
what
of
they're
back to
telling
my point, if we have a policy now, how are they breaking that rule? Is that their
They're not.
argument?
They're just not
They're
coming.
not
to us.
breaking the rule.
So there's no real
How they
law.
should-
No,
I don't think-
I don't think there's anything that says they have to have an agreement with the IDA, they
No,
just
there
have to go,
Yeah, I thought you said
See,
there
that's-
was.
so.
Yes, I'm confused.
I'm paraphrasing
Yeah.
what this says in the local laws, but it does, most of them have pretty much the exact same language, which is modeled that I think Rose was, which is you're required to get a pilot with the IDA. If I go to the school district, it has nothing to do with my special permit, so that's where they're starting. I'll start with the school, I'll get that done, that business is done. Now, I'll tackle the town special permit IDA requirements. And what they're starting to say is the IDA is trying to break the law. And they wanna charge us more than they legally can. Maybe on the pilot side of things, but I can charge in other ways. And at the end of the day, it's about compensation and taxing jurisdictions. We're
So too
accommodating
bad if they
solar.
don't like it, then don't do business.
Well, then, because you're not gonna get your permit, like, you can't get your special use permit,
Right.
but way there.
Yeah, so
you
can't we
get your
push
special
back
use
and say,
permit.
fine, you can go down that trail, but you can't get, exactly, like, put some
Isn't that the
checks and
process?
balances in this whole process.
The legal leg we have to stand on is the town's permitting.
Right.
And it's up to the town, not the IDA. So, one, this is, the purpose of this whole conversation is keeping a loop about what's going on. To let you know, there's a fairly complex situation going on, it could turn adversarial to an extent, right? Like, there could be a solar home or something. I disagree, you can't do it, frankly, it already has. There's pending litigation with Orbit Solar has, there's pending litigation in other taxing jurisdictions in New York because of their approach to this stuff, and there's stuff going on in this space.
So I'd like to hear from Tony and from Scott, who have the town level, what are your thoughts?
I'd like to leave it the same, I don't wanna manage any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm with you on the idea.
The school district has the right, it's like tax exemptions, they can pick and choose.
But it doesn't mean we have to,
No.
we being the county
No,
or the town.
And I agree, I personally think it's a good process, but you got individuals or individual districts or whatever that don't wanna.
Yeah.
My question in all this is, what's the advantage for them going directly to the school district?
I don't pay the ID's attorney. School districts will pay their own attorney for their own time.
But is it that much? You know, that's the thing, what's the details, devil's in the details.
Every little bit makes a difference, right? So they're also not paying the IDA agency fee. So what are these numbers left, okay? So we're talking probably the difference of around $100,000. Let's just use that as a number, right? So I'm a solar developer, I can save 50 to 100 grand by, or maybe more over the life of the project, right?
So if I was a solar developer, I would go to, why wouldn't I?
Well,
But it seems like
I don't-
without going to the county or the town, you're not gonna get a tax break on those two tax pieces.
just to put this all into context. General rule of thumb, $6 million a megawatt in total project cost, right? So if I'm doing a 5 megawatt project, 6 million a megawatt, that's $30 million. So 30 million, sure, I can say, again, I'm using round numbers, $100,000 is $100,000. If I could save it by dividing, I don't know, maybe more, let's call it 200. Sure, but it's still a $30 million project. And who's bearing the expense of that savings? Taxing jurisdictions. That feels unfair.
But that's only the case if the town and the county don't decide to negotiate their own.
Right.
Separately.
Well,
Because if you don't have an
Correct.
agreement, you're gonna get the full shot.
but the balance of math is, now the county and the town, they have to pay lawyers to execute pilot agreements.
So I'm not saying it's a good idea, but I feel like that's where the pushback is, if they wanna go around
Pay into
the
full-
They have to do
IDA,
it 3 times
then they can do it 3 times, and that's an inconvenience.
and a
And
higher
time.
cost. They're still gonna have to have the fees. I
Not to
feel like
mention
there's
the
a missing
ongoing
piece.
annual-
Yes. There's gotta be some missing piece to this.
Why?
Well, because I'm not a solar developer, but just hearing that, it'd be risky to me to have an arrangement with Arcadia and then know that Newark and the county, what if they don't enter into an agreement with me? Then I'm paying the full shot for taxes. Yes, we'll talk
You would
about-
know, I mean, if you're a developer, you would know, play that game and worst case
You're gonna
scenario.
think it through, right,
Yeah.
so you
You-
go
you
down
would hope
through the end game, right, to say, how would this play out?
Right.
And my assumption, and I don't know, but my assumption is that developer has talked to Arcadia,
The town?
the town.
Well, so they did, and I spoke to the town attorney, so, the new supervisor, probably not incredibly well versed. No reason she should be. But the town attorney is, and we've had conversations about this over the years. David Saraceno's general counsel in town, he's got another lawyer who works with me, stuff. But in any case, we've been on the same page for years. And he took a call, reached out to me, and said, what they're telling you is, we can still do this through the IDA. And you understand the benefits of it. I said, absolutely, we get it. As a condition of a permit, they have to go to the IDA. The pushback and the argument that solar developers are making is, well, the IDA is trying to break the law. Like, we're not gonna do that. We're still gonna charge you though, what I think is fair, which is still about a 90% discount on what you should, in my mind, be paying based on a real assessment and full taxes. You're getting a huge discount. But business is business. I'm not gonna begrudge anyone for attempting to save $100,000 or whatever, but who's bearing that expense? Not the solar developer. So this is all ongoing. There are project applications that are come here, there's emails getting
But
swapped
the
in.
town or the county can put a stop to that. So they're saying you wanna bring it to the supervisors, right? You wanna talk to them about each of their.
What I think has been, I'm sorry,
Right, you wanna bring it to the supervisors, right, and talk to them about the process as this flows through.
supervisors, school boards,
Right.
county, what we've been doing has been working.
Right.
Keeps us all on the
And
same
then lay
page,
it out, I mean, for
collective.
those that don't know, right, and make sure
Well,
that
give a
they're-
friendly
right.
reminder, hey, this
Right.
space is changing. Developers are now attempting to work around this and approach taxing jurisdictions to do that at the frame of email.
Cause like if you don't get it now, you're gonna get it later kind of deal.
So,
Sometimes it's a hard discussion that needs to happen, right?
Basically, you're asking to go out and promote what's going on and to have these discussions, and as you said, just keep communication open.
I know how things happen, right? These conversations are kind of happening right now. They're gonna get more nuanced. And, you guys all know people. This is not, these are smaller community, everybody knows everybody's bringing spark up in Ontario. They're gonna, there's very likely a conversation, someone that reach out to a board of, the IDA is trying to screw us, or this is unfair, or that you guys are attempting to break the law, and I wanna bring it to the table, and let you know, one, this is happening. Two, it's nuanced. Three, here's what I would think is a fair approach, which is we continue to do what we do. We might have to shift payments from the pilot schedule to some other, like the host community benefit charges. But total compensation to taxing jurisdictions, I think. I'm suggesting that it has to go up. Not down. Like, these guys are making more money. And taxing jurisdictions, we're talking 6 acres a megawatt.
I also think from a planning perspective, the county and town should adopt a concentration risk or percentage
There's a percentage in
of
there.
total land that they do not want more than X for solar.
There's a recommendation in the county farmland protection plan that does exactly that. At the end of the day, land use is local and that's up, the towns and the villages effectively have the control over. Yeah, eliminate solar from your municipality, you can steer it where you want it and steer it away from where you don't. That's up to the municipalities and
Does each town have a plan for that? For farmland protection?
I would have to look at them.
no.
Probably not
Do you know,
sufficient
Scott?
detail.
I think so.
Percentage.
I'm the county
just
planning
really
director too.
curious.
And I can tell you right now, they don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I'll say there's more local planning going on in Wayne County than I've seen since I've been here. I'm pretty impressed by it. There's a lot of municipalities updating comp plans, working through zoning code updates, addressing these things in that process is super important. Now more than ever. But they all don't. All of them do have a path to getting a permit for solar. From what I know, and off the top of my head, without having all 15 or 20, depending on whatever. They all have language that says, as a condition of us granting you a special permit, you gotta go to the county IDA. I'm paraphrasing.
Well, it seems to me like that's our protection, we already have a process.
I think that's crazy. Okay.
Right, I mean, we have a process. I still don't see how, like, when someone goes outside of it, when that company comes to us. If you've gone to a school district, that we don't issue a pilot agreement, so then you're gonna pay the full shot.
That's.
So then why would they then do that?
That's exactly.
It'll be their
Doesn't make
penalty.
any sense.
That'd be their penalty.
Yep.
So I feel like we just keep doing what we've always done. And if it happens outside of it, they're the ones that are gonna get burned.
It's creating a very contentious atmosphere, I'll say that, and attempting to work through it as we can. I know we just took a lot of meeting time on this. I think it's important that we find time at the meetings to do this, but I know we have a lot of other stuff to do, so. I'll put a pin in this. I'm gonna keep working at it. I'll bring you guys more detail. Okay,
When are you going to the supervisors?
probably going to them, you mean email?
I thought you were gonna go to their meeting and have this discussion, that's what I thought.
All 15 of them? That's a lot of time. I'm gonna send them all an email. I have the benefit of,
Okay.
at least from the supervisor's level, they all get together across the street at least once a month. I have committees and other ways. I see lots of supervisors all the time, so I'm communicating with most of them all the time. Fairly regularly.
I'd be curious,
The school district is a
What-
different
what-
story.
everybody has
Well,
to
right,
say.
how do you reach the school
Yeah.
districts?
We
There's a
just updated our-
supervisor's board, isn't there?
Yeah,
Isn't there a-
superintendents,
yeah,
yeah.
superintendents.
We just updated our list, our contact list. It's not just superintendents, though. So each school district has like a business manager.
Yeah, they have the- well, I know
They have deputy
some.
superintendents, so I have contact information for all of them. And we get an email out to them at least and open the door to them. Let's talk more about this.
If you receive a request, come to us, here's what we offer.
Let's at least talk before you start advancing
Right.
into the school district.
But Brian, I also think it would be helpful if you can get that contract from Arcadia, because I'd like to understand the financial impact.
Yeah.
Arcadia may have negotiated a better deal for themselves than if it had gone through the county. Is like, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, like what would motivate them to do that? So I'd love to know if they did.
Me too.
Or
I'm
if
trying
your,
to-
or if your selling point could be, if you'd come through us, you would have gotten this.
It's so new, it has not yet been posted on their website and
But it has to be public, right?
it will, yes. So we'll get it one way or another. I've asked the attorney.
And you weren't even part of this discussion, this was.
Not until after the fact. Yeah, there was- and I
I
think
mean, it's.
I spoke to that, and Justin and I had a call with that attorney last week or 2 weeks ago. That we got it, we were just not aware that you were doing this. If we get another application, we'll be sure to talk to you about it. And that's really the point of all this. Let's at least have a conversation.
Right,
yeah.
If it works out that you're like, we'd rather go I get it. You're representing your own interests. I don't blame them for doing that. But the collective approach to this, I think.
Yeah.
They don't discount ongoing contract management. And so for the next 15 years, that school district is gonna have to. The county or no one's gonna, who's gonna bill for that pilot every year, make sure they're in compliance, all this other stuff. Decommissioning, there's all these other things built into stuff that we're doing locally between the town, the county and IDA that are. On opposite side of the street.
It's just to for the feedback loop, it's great that you had this item on your report, but I think when we talk about saving meeting time, such a great example where if you had written, like, here's the process of what we do today, here's what happened, here's the pros and cons, like, here's what I want you thinking about. I think if we had that in advance, then we could come with better questions or.
I appreciate that, it's very nuanced, it would be like a 3-page white paper. I mean, it would take a lot of my time to do something like that.
But I think, I agree with Pam, I think it's a good idea because, you know, for me, just watching blowing in, blowing out, you know what I mean? So it's kind of
Well,
nice to have someone.
But we're here,
Keep in
we're
mind,
hearing it.
You're referring to staff and management to handle these things.
Yeah.
I'm keeping you in the loop, you're gonna oversee that work that we're doing. And hopefully if we're addressing these in discussions along the way, you're not coming to a blind. So next month when I come to you with something new about this, we had a detailed discussion about this, and I keep you informed, and it's a progression. The things are drawn out, they're not 6 foot.
I guess my only point to that is the more information we can get as a board, the better. On other boards I sit on, I get a lot of detail, and I know the staff on those executive team members on the staff, they put a lot of time into it, and that's just part of being on the board, because they all know we fly in and fly out. It's just nice to have a little bit more detail, Brian.
Yeah.
And I think going, you know, as we move and get better with the process.
Yeah.
Something we can work on, but just to start it. And it doesn't have to be a 3-page white paper. I think just a quick 1-pager just to give us a little bit of detail on what's going on. And that's just my.
And also in your summary, you talked about this new assessment process. And we didn't really talk about that too much.
Yeah.
I assume that's because New York State is pro solar, like that's what that's all
Yes.
about.
Yes, I mean, look, there's a lot of lobbying and things that go on in Albany that we're not privy to. And the state has a very aggressive climate action plan. And it's a lot of very nuanced discussions going on relative to the stuff with the stoves, right?
Yeah.
The lack of gas. We have about half of the total electric generation in the need in 10 years. Where's the rest coming from?
Not to get into it.
Yeah, no, I know,
Yeah,
go
it's
for it.
it's like, what about the economic impact of all this and how it's gonna erode tax base, because agriculture is our #1 economy driver in.
New York State is losing projects to Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee,
So,
Texas. No, because we don't have the power to meet the demand that this new facility that would bring 200, 300, 500, 1,000 jobs to the table. We don't have the power today. Keep adding load, which we are, cars, connected devices, all this stuff. The projection on the total electric consumption requirement 10, 15, 20 years from now is double what we have in generation today.
That's why we gotta not have electric stoves.
That's his job. I'm not a policymaker, but I can help inform them, and I'm telling you, from an economic, business attraction side of things, the amount of electricity on the grid that we can provide for attraction projects, we can handle about 5 megawatts here in Lyons. That's a lot, by the way. We used to see projects that were, a megawatt was a lot for a while. We're seeing projects, clean tech. I started doing the whole thing with those 20 megawatts, 50 megawatts of demand for one project. That's, the Micron deal is gonna use more power than this entire city of Syracuse. Where's that generation gonna come from? Those are big, big policy things, but it impacts boots on the ground when we start talking about the state's initiative for solar and its impact on the land. Finite amount of land in Wayne County, to your point, how much solar are we gonna accommodate?
I just feel like we not really, the planning for the county, that like that's huge.
I would suggest if you're into this stuff at one level or another, reference the county's ag and farmland protection plan. Those county level plans are intended to help inform local comp plans. That stuff. Again, I appreciate we just took a bunch of meeting time. These conversations and these meetings is what I think is important. So thank you for that.
I agree.
That's my executive director's update.
Okay. Good. Next meeting is November 12th. You adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, Mary.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?